My name, Percival Joseph Lake, and I was born on the 3rd of December 1925 at Birmingham, England. I'm very interested in sport. Used to play a bit of soccer, a lot of soccer. And but it was depression years, and we had to work too. Well, every Saturday morning, we used to have to go to Woolworths, around the back of Woolworths, collect empty boxes and chop them up. They're all wooden boxes in those days. Chop them up, then go around selling them, penny a bucket, firewood, to get our picture money so that we could go to the movie on a Saturday afternoon. Did that for quite a while. All black and white, you know, and that maybe American westerns. We used to appeal to the children in those days. Well, the football team I was playing with were all 4 or 5 years older than me. Oh, and they all thought it was their duty to join it. The country looked like being invaded at the time. The fellas had just got back from Dunkirk, and things were very sad, and they were more or less asking everyone to enlist. And I thought that my mates in the team suggested I should go with them, and I did. But I of course, I was much younger, but so I put my age up to 19, and had no trouble getting in. Well, I mean, it was very depressing everywhere. The Blitz hadn't started quite then, but having seen what the Germans did to France and Holland, and expecting the Blitz to start, and people were getting prepared, people were putting up air raid shelters in, and I mean, women were moving in, taking over where the men had to leave, work and in the service, and it was just sad times, something they'd never quite experienced before. We'd go to hang out the washing on the Siegfried line, had been sung for many months while the British Army was over in France. And they continued to sing it when they came back, having not the slightest chance of ever hanging their washing on the Siegfried line. But things changed, and they kept singing in a defiance more than anything else, especially when the air raid started, and they needed any encouragement they could get, and that's why they survived. They stood up to it very, very well, particularly the women, because the men were in the army and the services generally, and the women had to stay at home and get in the food queues, look after children, and put up with their eggs every night in the cities, that is, and that's how they survived. Well, we didn't have telephones, no cars, you had to walk everywhere. She had quite a walk to go to do the shopping, and because of the shortage of food, you more or less had to go shopping every day. She got 3 children to get to school, and my father, he was over in France, and she did very well to look after them. And her first husband got killed in the Battle of the Somme with several 100,000 other British soldiers. And her first husband was with my father in the same unit together. He came back from France in 1918 and married her She had 2 children, and she'd had a hard life right through. Yeah, well, my father didn't come back from France through Dunkirk like most of the British Army. He came back from St Malo, and a couple of days later, and because of that, we thought he must have been taken prisoner. And I found out when I went up to the Gospel Oak, and they told me that I met some other fellows from his unit. They told me the reason my father was stopped behind he stayed behind to destroy any equipment that we had to leave behind them. And he and his platoon got back through St Malo a couple of days later, and he arrived home, and we thought he must have been taken prisoner or killed. And anyway, it was a relief when we found he was okay. Well, I got home from work, and only to find, when I opened the door of my home, I saw this khaki greatcoat laying on the settee in the lounge, and I immediately looked towards the kitchen where my mother was preparing the evening meal. She looked up and said, "Yes, he's home." He got home and looking up his mates, they hadn't seen for 9, 12 months. And so that was the good news, At that time, I hadn't seen him for 12 months. My father enlisted when the call came out, just a couple of days after the war started. And I hadn't seen him for, must have been 12 months. Well, I didn't see him then. He came home, and shortly after he went back to the army. I enlisted myself, and I never saw my father again for 4 years. After he came back from Dunkirk, he was stationed in the Faroe Islands for a short time before going out to North Africa, and he didn't get back again till 1944. And that's when I saw him. I hadn't seen him for 4 years. Yes, when I went to Normandy, there were a lot of young chaps the same age as me that had only been in the army 6 to 12 months or less. And they're very green as regards soldiers. But luckily, things, after 2 or 3 months, things eased up a bit, and it was the Germans that withdrew. And the war, well, one of the worst things that happened to me was when I was a 14-year-old and I was on guard, and I had to keep a madman out of the guard room, and I had a rifle and bayonet, and the staff sergeant ordered me to bayonet the fellow, and I wouldn't, because I knew he was a good bloke when he was sober, and that was a bad time. It ended okay, but some of the worst times were, well, every other day in Normandy there was, you was burying mates. Another bad time was up in Holland when we liberated the Dutch town of Weert. I lost the whole of the platoon I was in Normandy. A whole lot of them got killed or wounded just in a matter of 5 minutes, And that was possibly the worst time. It's just that my company was given the job to creating a diversion to draw the Germans out of Weert while the brigade crossed the Escaut Canal about 3 miles away. And we had them firing at us for 48 hours, but the brigadier didn't think we were doing enough, and they thought we should put up more of a show to draw the Germans out. So he decided that instead of just being along the banks of the canal, they sent up assault boats during the night. And one platoon, my old platoon, was put in the boats and had to cross the canal in daybreak the next morning. And everyone knew they were going to be killed because the Germans were just waiting for them, and we just listened to them screaming for stretcher bearers, and a lot of them just fell into the canal and drowned. And the mission, as far as the brigadier was concerned, was successful because the brigade surrounded the Germans. About 2 hours later, 400 German prisoners were taken just beyond where these blokes were killed. We did the job, but like at 1914, 18, you know, where they're prepared to lose thousands of men, just like that. It could have been avoided. We could have achieved the same results without that much loss of life, you know. All my mates, well, we were along the canal bank, on the sheltered side of the canal bank, and where we'd been for 48 hours, firing at the Germans just to draw them to us. And they said we weren't doing enough. You know, there's still Germans in Weird. But anyway, the brigadier decided, as I said, we'd send assault boats, and the platoon we had in reserve, which was my old platoon, they were about half a mile away in woodlands, and during the night they sent for them and brought them so that they could cross the canal at dawn. I spoke to the lieutenant in charge of that platoon, a Canadian, and he told me, he said, I think we're all going to be sacrificed. And we all thought the same thing, and they were, yeah. Some of the friends I'd shared trenches with in Normandy, a whole lot. Our job was to create a diversion. Well, we were doing what we thought was enough. Our lieutenant thought we were doing enough. We could, and what we should have done, we'd already had our 25-pounders at, you know, they're a few miles away to soften up the German side. And instead of sending that platoon in the boats, they should have just brought the 25-pounders and blasted the place away, you know.
But who were in the boats?
I wasn't in the boat.
Yeah, why were you not in the boat, and why were they in the boats?
Well, because that platoon was the ones that had been selected to go over. And my platoon was I wasn't in that platoon at the time, thank goodness. In fact, a fortnight before I was. And I argued with the corporal when he told me I'd got to be shifted to another platoon to balance the platoons up after casualties, which was often the case. We would, and I said, I don't want to go in another platoon, I've got my mates here. He said, I'm sorry, you'll have to go. But as it happened, it turned out for the best, because if I hadn't have gone, I'd have been with those going over on the boats, you know.
Did you get that? About being the fact that he was on the boat. So basically, if you can just say again,
stop.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just luck of the game. It happens all the time, but in this particular instance, this platoon was completely wiped out. My old platoon, the platoon I'd been right through Normandy with, but as I say, they had to take so many out of that platoon to balance the other platoons in our company. And I happened to be one that they took out against my will. The corporal Whittle, argued with him, and he said, "I can't help it, you'll have to go." And he said, but he didn't go to because he was killed. George Churchman, he was killed. The whole platoon was wiped out. And we knew, and when we were guarding that my platoon was strung out along the canal bank on the in defensive positions, and we fired away to try and help them, but we could. Matter of fact, one of my mates, only about 3 feet away from me, a fellow named Carroll, he got hit got a bullet in the shoulder, he got one or two pieces, his steel helmet, and I helped to dress his wound, as a matter of fact, and then get back to my gun. I'd been put on a Bren temporary because that we took all the company's Bren guns to support the guys that were crossing the canal, but it wasn't enough. You can't be angry. I mean, everyone's doing their best. We're all working. We're just doing what we're told. I mean, the brigadier, we assume, was the one that ordered this platoon to go across like that, the way that we knew that he wouldn't. But, I mean, as far as the brigadier was concerned, we succeeded because we captured Viet that day, and the next day, after we buried so many of the dead that got killed on our side of the canal, we buried them in between a couple of cottages, I remember well. Then later that day, we marched through Viet, and all the towns came out to wave us on and urge us on, And that's it. You can be lucky and unlucky. There's generally about 30 men in a platoon. Our platoons weren't that many because we had so many casualties over recent weeks. Possibly 25. I don't know how many of them were killed. Some of them were just shot down on the towpath of the canal before they got in the boats. And then the ones that did get in, the Germans waiting for them to get halfway across the canal. It's only a narrow canal about 20 metres wide, and they would have fallen in the canal, and because they're loaded with ammunition and everything, they'd have gone straight to the bottom of the water. They wouldn't have floated, and they would have been buried much later. But we had to move on. I mean, we only went to this spot to get us off the road. We're heading on our way up to Arnhem to assist the people. And when we got taken off the road, I think the whole exercise was a means of helping ease the traffic on the road going north, And after we'd had the walk through Viet, and a few hours later, we're on our way north again, Look, I think there's thousands like me that were on that age that enlisted at that time because the demand was there. They wanted every bloke they could get. I think the Germans were coming over. And that's why my mother didn't worry that much. She thought, well, I might as well be in the army as be at home if they're going to be fighting. I think we were just doing what we thought was the right thing. There's several fellows in the unit I was in were underage. They may not have been as young as me, but they had done that too. But all over UK at that time, I think there'd have been tens of thousands of underage guys in the service. A lot of them were going in the Air Force and the Navy, But actually they couldn't get in the Navy or the Air Force till they were 16 because they wanted to see their birth certificates before they'd enlisted. But the Army, they didn't want to see your birth certificate. You could tell them anything, I always found this spot. I mean, along the beaches on the south coast, there's no civilians there. It's all barbed wire and sealed off. And we found this place one of our guys found it, a line of beach huts, and he thought it would be the ideal place for us to spend our days off. We were doing 24 hours on the gun, on the machine gun. That was the first time I fired a gun. And we started going out there for our days off, because sometimes our time supposed to have 24 hours off. They'd come and grab us for other duties, and that was, typical of the army. But it was good. And that was the first time I'd seen the sea. I mean, I'd never seen the sea until I was down there. I was 14 when I first saw the sea. Yes. The first night we got down there on the south coast, I didn't see the sea because we arrived there in darkness in an air raid, and we couldn't have the lights on in the building that was going to be our village for the next few months. And then some guy got up early next morning and went walk round, and he came back and said, the sea's only just less than 100 yards down the road. And I thought he was pulling my leg. Anyway, we went down. He wasn't, and it wasn't a very nice sight because there was barbed wire entanglements all along which would normally be a nice beach. But that was the first time I saw the sea.
You've ended up spending a good deal of your life
at the sea. Oh yeah. Why is it so? Because I quit my work in the electrical line to become a surveyor because I like the outdoor life, the fresh air and everything. That's the reason why. I like the atmosphere, along the sea, foreshores and so on. I like fishing. Got everything here for my interest. I had good friends here at Point Lookout, and fellows that had the same interests as myself, and I had a marvellous life. I like golf, fishing, just like the fresh air, the sea air. No, because I'd spent several years in New Guinea, the islands up there, and I was on ships, and I'd been on the water for 5 years up there. It seemed to be the normal, to be in the air around the sea. And I think when you live in a place like this, you used to have neighbours that had so much in common with yourself because they all come out for the same reason. It's not quite the same today because a lot of people come here and get a bit like the Gold Coast, rentals, and a lot of them never wet a line in their life, Oh, it was marvellous. It was when I was playing football in Brisbane that one of my friends' mothers suggested I go with her son over to Point Lookout for the weekend to stay at Clayton's guest house. There's only a couple of places to stay in those days, and I did, and I'm pleased I did because I took a liking to the place the first day here. I walked out, it was just on Cylinder Beach, and I decided I'd put in a lot more time here, Yeah. When was that? That would have been about 1950. There were no sealed roads, just a track from Point Lookout to Abbotsford, a dirt road. There were no houses up here, just the odd shack. A couple of Nissan huts down on Cylinder Beach that the army had left there when they'd been here during the war years, Another one at head up there near the, what's that place near the...
At a rock. At a rock.
At a rock, yes. Yeah. There's a couple of there. They're the only buildings there. Mm.
So, do you think it's ironic you grew up in the Midlands and didn't see the ocean until you were 14,
yeah.
and now you spent most of your life beside the ocean?
Yes, making up for it. Of course, because of my age, I've had to slow down somewhat. And obviously I've done that the last few years, but I still enjoy being here. I can't imagine living anywhere else. I don't want to go and live in a home. After seeing some of my friends in these retirement places, I thought I'd rather be here. Mm. Oh, well, I just... it's not that I'm antisocial, it's just that I like having a meal when I feel like it, going to bed when I feel like it. I'm not tied down to any restrictions, and especially the friends I had here, they've all been passing away in the last 5 years, so many of them. I haven't got many friends here now. But the family's growing up and they come over, so it compensates for that, you know. Am I surprised that you...
That people are interested in reading your book and like your story?
In a way, yes. Because, let's face it, I never asked you to write the book. I didn't know that you'd done the book. I knew you got the manuscripts and everything. I found that out only when you'd showed me the book. I didn't even know you'd got the manuscript. Okay. Oh, well, I went over on an American landing craft and with a group of reinforcements, and quite a number of boats. I know as we got closer to the coast, we had a couple of alerts with German aircraft, and Navy was still shelling, you know, when we got on the beach, we had nothing like they had on D-Day, like it was clear. We just had guys waiting for us, you know, to rush us away, get us off the beach. And I finished up in a place called Hermanville. It's just a couple of miles in from the beach. And that's where I held out doing little jobs there, getting used to the shelling and that before we moved up and joined the battalion, you know. You know, I can't really remember what time of the blinking day it was. Because we've been on the boats and off the boats. This particular boat, American boat that we was on, there's a gang of us and we're getting bored. In fact, I'll tell you what happened. One of our guys found a carton underneath some of the bunks, and it was full of tins of soup. And they were these self-heating tins. If you've seen them, you pull it and it warms the soup. We thought it was a great novelty. We got into it. And the blinking skipper of the boat found out before we got onto the beach. And he shouted, he said, I hope you get what you're entitled to, you know, get something to that effect, you know. That's something I do remember. But I can't remember that I was rushed. And, yeah, it was pretty messy.
Euphoria? What about euphoria?
So you're getting onto the beach. Just explain whatever you can remember about that period. Anything you can remember about getting on the beach.
I wasn't on the beach long.
We'll start again. You're seeing the people come up to you to help you as the boats are coming in?
Oh, no, the big ramp went down, like on these. I often think of when I'm on these barges here, you know, with the port coming down, we're all waiting for it to go down. And we feared the worst because we didn't know what was going to happen. But we had to come right on the beach. Some of the guys had to go in the water, but most were on the sand, you know, in the group I was with. And there's blokes in charge of beach groups already in position when I landed, and more or less telling us where to go, you know, and to keep our heads down, of course. You know. But I wasn't on the beach very long. On Sword Beach, that was. Pretty noisy, pretty noisy. A lot of gunfire. The Navy were firing still. Naval ships were still firing over our heads. In fact, they were firing weeks after, you know, over some of the places we captured well inland, 10 miles inland, and the Navy was still firing. It's frightened all the time. If anyone's not scared of the situation to get in, he's lying, because you have to be. It's like any other place when you think your number can be up just like that, you know. How many months before? Oh, about 3 months. Didn't change our clothes for 6 months. Oh, the first shower I can remember I had was in December on New Year's Eve. I know that we were up somewhere up around around the Dutch border, I think. And you never know where you are. You don't know anything when you're in infantry. All you know is it's day or night, and that's about the only thing you're sure of. And I know we had our shower, and we were so pleased. We had our towels over our shoulders when we come out, going back to our unit, and the blinking Germans started strafing. And they said, "Get your hind, put your towels away." They can see the towels over our khaki, you see. And you had to take our towels off their shoulders and put them there, so you know, not to give them a target. You know. But we didn't worry us that much. I reckon it was thinking 6 months. 5 or 6 months.
When you
I
landed...
nearly got a shower one day in Normandy. I was taking some prisoners back, and we had to take them back several miles. And during that time we passed some Canadian mob, and they had showers there, you know. They had big tents on the side of the road, and a few blokes going in. And we said to the guy, "Can we get a shower?" He said, "Sure, come in," you know. But we found out that they were taking all their uniform off and everything, throwing it down and getting all new stuff. Well, we couldn't do that because we couldn't go back in Canadian uniforms on, so we didn't get a shower. Can't remember having a shower till then. No, I can't think. I know every now and again you got a chance to brush your teeth. Oh, the clothes were alive. I had lice, I told you. Everyone was getting lice. My name is Joe Lake. I was born in December 1925. I was a soldier at 14. And this book gives you some idea of my life. This is my story. I was born in Birmingham in December 1925. And this is the story of my life. Going to the army at the age of 14. My name is Joe Lake. I come from Birmingham. I was born in December 1925. I enlisted in the army when I was 14, and this is my story. My name is Joe Lake. I was born on the 3rd of December 1925 and enlisted in the British Army at the age of 14. This book gives you an insight into the rest of my life. My name is Joe Lake.
Start again.
My name is Joe Lake. I was born in Birmingham in December 1925, enlisted in the British Army at the age of 14, and this book is the story of my life. My name is Joe Lake. I was born in Birmingham in 1925, enlisting in the British Army as a 14-year-old. And this is the story of my life.